Chapter 1: The Dawn of the Guardian. Title: The Genesis of the Trust Guardian and the Birth of AI. In the heart of the bustling city, nestled among a forest of towering skyscrapers, a young man named Bidzil Bey found himself in the epicenter of the financial world. His office, dimly lit by the city's ambient glow, was a testament to the complex world he was about to navigate. Strewn across his desk were a myriad of financial reports, legal documents, and trust agreements, each one a piece of the intricate puzzle of trust administration and compliance. Bidzil was not just any young man, he was a legal prodigy, fresh out of law school, with a keen interest in the intersection of law, finance, and technology. His journey was just beginning, a journey that would lead him deep into the labyrinthine world of trust law, a world filled with fiduciary duties, asset conveyances, and beneficiary rights. His mission was clear: to revolutionize the way trusts were administered. He envisioned a future where the complexities of trust law could be simplified, where compliance could be ensured with the click of a button, and where transparency was not just a goal, but a reality. This was the genesis of the Trust Guardian, a concept that would merge the legal expertise of a trust officer with the efficiency and precision of artificial intelligence. It was a bold idea, one that would challenge the status quo and transform the industry. The birth of the syntactical trust was the first step in this journey. This innovative approach to trust administration harnessed the power of AI to streamline processes, enhance transparency, and strengthen compliance. It was a game changer, a tool that would redefine the way trusts were managed. As Bidzil delved deeper into the world of trust law, he began to understand the true potential of the syntactical trust. It was not just a tool, it was a paradigm shift, a new way of thinking about trust administration. And it was just the beginning.
Legal perspectives on tokenized carbon credits, a syllabus for a RESI, CCG, and a FINET. The emergence of tokenized carbon credits represents a novel intersection of blockchain technology, environmental policy, and legal frameworks. This syllabus outlines the fundamental aspects of tokenized carbon credits from a legal standpoint, emphasizing the considerations that a RESI, CCG, and FINET must take into account to ensure regulatory compliance, market integrity, and the promotion of sustainable environmental practices. Understanding tokenization and its legal implications. Tokenization converts real-world assets into digital tokens on the blockchain. This process necessitates a careful legal examination to ensure the digital representation faithfully and legally corresponds to its real-world counterpart. Legal challenges include establishing ownership rights, understanding regulatory classifications, and ensuring compliance with securities laws. Definition and scope of tokenization, exploring the legal definition of tokenization and its applicability to various asset classes. Regulatory considerations for tokenized assets, analyzing the regulatory landscape governing tokenized assets, focusing on securities law, anti-money laundering AML regulations, and know your customer KYC requirements. Ownership and transferability issues, examining the legal challenges surrounding the ownership, transferability, and inheritance of tokenized assets. Tokenization of carbon credits, legal framework and challenges. The tokenization of carbon credits introduces a unique set of legal challenges, from ensuring the accurate digital representation of carbon credits to navigating the complex regulatory environment of the voluntary carbon market VCM. Legal basis for tokenizing carbon credits, understanding the legal mechanisms that allow for the tokenization of carbon credits, including the rights and obligations conferred by tokenized credits. Regulatory landscape of the VCM, a comprehensive review of the regulatory framework governing the VCM, with a focus on standards, certifications, and oversight mechanisms. Interoperability with traditional carbon credit registries, legal considerations for linking tokenized carbon credits with traditional carbon credit registries, ensuring seamless and legally sound transitions between digital and non-digital forms. Risks and benefits of tokenized carbon credits. The tokenization of carbon credits offers potential benefits, such as increased liquidity and transparency, but also poses significant legal risks, including fraud, double counting, and the potential for regulatory noncompliance. Fraud prevention and legal safeguard strategies for minimizing legal risks associated with tokenized carbon credits, including fraud prevention measures and safeguards against double counting. Compliance with environmental regulations, ensuring that tokenized carbon credits comply with international, national, and local environmental regulations and standards. Legal benefits of tokenization for the VCM, exploring how tokenization can contribute to the legal robustness and integrity of the VCM, including through improved transparency and traceability. Implementing tokenized carbon credits, legal best practices. For RISI, CCG, and AFINA, implementing tokenized carbon credits requires adherence to legal best practices to ensure regulatory compliance, market integrity, and the promotion of sustainable environmental outcomes. Developing a legal framework for tokenization, key considerations for developing a comprehensive legal framework that addresses the unique challenges of tokenizing carbon credits. Cross-jurisdictional legal issues, navigating the complexities of implementing tokenized carbon credits across different legal jurisdictions, including considerations for international law and treaty obligations. Future legal trends and tokenization, anticipating future legal developments in the tokenization space, including potential changes to regulatory frameworks and the impact on the VCM. Conclusion. The tokenization of carbon credits represents a significant advancement in the intersection of technology, environmental policy, and law. By carefully navigating the legal landscape, RISI, CCG, and AFINET can contribute to the development of a robust, transparent, and effective market for tokenized carbon credits, thereby supporting global climate solutions. This syllabus provides a foundational understanding of the legal considerations essential for the successful implementation and growth of tokenized carbon credits within the voluntary carbon market.
Welcome to the Ken McElroy Show. I'm your host, Danielle, here with Ken.
Hey, guys.
So bank failures are going to happen this year for small banks.
Yep, it's already starting. You guys probably know this is all part of the plan, and I just would encourage you guys to stay big picture. You know, sometimes you can – I understand that you want to read all the articles and all that kind of stuff, but the big picture is big banks gobble up small banks, and most of the toxic commercial real estate loans, we can get into residential in a minute, most of the toxic real estate loans are hitting now.
Yes.
And these banks have a credit rating. You guys probably know that, just like you do. You guys we all have a walking credit score, you know what I mean? Banks have the same thing. It's called a CAMEL system, CAMELS, I believe. It stands for capital allocations, asset quality, management, earnings, liquidity, and sensitivity. So each bank has a rating 1 to 5. So one of the things that I think everybody needs to watch is what's going to happen. What bank are you with? And you really need to pay attention to this, because as we start to see these toxic commercial real estate loans make their way through the system, there will be other banks that take over the assets, just like you guys saw with Silicon Valley and Silvergate Bank last year. So that was a little bit different, but it doesn't really matter. You know, you're starting to see these loans come through the system now.
So let's talk about the why, right? Like, why would small banks, some small banks, not make it this year? So you have to really look at a lot of these real estate loans that these banks wrote. Small banks, I believe, write 70% of all
Correct.
commercial real estate loans.
Small and regional banks are, the big banks that you guys probably all see when you drive around and you see their names on the tops of the buildings. Those are not the banks we're talking about. Those are the banks that are going to take over the assets of these banks. The problem is, it doesn't really matter. It'd be like you taking over a business that had, toxic debt, right? So it's still the same problem. It doesn't mean it's going to go away just because the big bank steps in and gobbles up a small or medium bank. That does not matter. They're going to take a look at the quality of the assets.
Okay, so the first thing that is happening with these commercial loans. So a lot of these commercial loans were good loans. The bank underwrote them. They were great loans with a low interest rate. But as the Fed has upped these loans, the problem that these commercial properties are now having is the rents are performing above the business plan in a lot of cases, but the operations have gotten more expensive and the debt has gotten way more expensive.
This is you guys all know there's three components. There's your rent, then your expenses, and after that's your net operating income. Then you have your debt, and after that is cash flow. So the cost of debt is going up, and it has gone up. And so, people that are professionals, have been in this industry, they started taking action in 2022. So here we are in 2024, almost 2 years later. So the taps on the shoulder were there 2 years ago. And how were they there? Well, we peaked at inflation at 9.1% in June of 2022. And what did the Fed do? They raised rates 4 times after June of 2022. A total of 2.75%. So they went 3 at 0.75. They did 3/4 point increases 3 times in 2022 and 50 basis points as well. Okay, that really jacked the rates. Okay, so let's call 2022 the denial phase, right? So there's 5 stages of grief, right? So 2022 is the denial stage. 2023 was, I would call that the anger stage. That's the second stage of grief. So the anger stage, and that's when people were running out of money, trying to put all the deals together. Now they're in the third stage, of grief, which is bargaining, and that is where we are today. And then, of course, there's 2 more. There's depression, and then there's acceptance. And so we're in the bargaining stage, heading to depression. That's where we are.
Right. So essentially, when the property is not cash flowing, you are going to be using your reserves to pay that property. And all sponsors have different amounts of reserves, right? But after that, what you're seeing people do last year, where they were getting sponsors to come up with new cash reserves.
Yeah.
So they were either cash calling their investors, or they were bringing in new people.
Right. So imagine. So if you've been in the business a while, you're all over this in 2022. So when your interest costs go up, then your cash flow starts to go down. Just walking through that scenario I just said. So in 2023, that's when people started going out and finding more LPs. They started doing cash calls. They started doing loans. Their rate caps were due. There's a bunch of stuff. And don't forget, we're also getting clobbered on insurance rates and property taxes and utilities and labor costs and all those other things. So the one interesting thing about all of this is rents actually were going up during this whole period of time. So that actually gave people they've got a little hope, you know what I mean? The rent growth is pretty much all they had to hang on. And now what's happening is we've got almost 1 million new units entering the market. And that's nationwide. Mm-hmm. There's 670,000, I think, was 2024, and then maybe 300,000, 400,000 in 2025, depending on which ones get built. So you have 1 million units of supply being added to the market, which is going to create disruption for the next 2 years. So now you have that. For the first time in a long time, people are actually having to figure out how to manage
Right.
They're-
Their
you know, yeah,
Yeah.
like they never really had to. They're like, oh, rent growths are 5, 6, 7, 8%. Welcome, folks. This is what I started in. I've had turbulent times until the last 10 years. The last 10 years, everybody looked like a star.
So what was interesting about people calling sponsors sponsors calling new money last year was that we were told that the rates were going to go down this year. So that was kind of the
Yeah.
reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
But as you know, the Fed was supposed to lower rates 6 times this year. They haven't lowered them at all yet. We're in April. And so now they've backed off to 3 times, perhaps at a quarter point
Or
each
maybe
time.
not even that. So
Yeah.
yeah, again, guys, stay big picture. So for all of you that were hanging on 5, 6% and you're 5, 6 times lowering, and you mailed that or emailed that to all your LPs or whatever you did, you should have stayed big picture, because if you take a look at even the job report that just came out, take a look at that. It's over 300,000 or something like. Well, there's a couple things I want to say about that. The first one is low unemployment numbers are inflationary, period. Fed is very concerned about having low unemployment. They say that stabilizes, the Fed, not me, 4.5. We're at like 3.7 or 3.8. Jerry, is that about right? Okay. So that alone is a couple million people that they're like, uh-oh, this is not good. So, but if you really dig into that data, there's a, what grew? Full-time did not grow, part-time grew. So part-time unemployment was actually super strong. And why is this important? It's important because some of the Fed chairs are actually looked at that report. This is all, you can read about this. And they're like, I don't know if there's going to be any cuts at all. In fact, there's even a couple that even suggested we might need more rate increases. So this next couple months are going to be really interesting as we start to see some of this inflation, not to mention the fact that we're heading into an election year. So, and I know, the Fed's not supposed to be political, but I can't imagine that they're not going to be. Jerry, can you pull up this chart real quick? I want to show you guys where we are. There's 4 phases in a real estate cycle. So I want you guys to take a look at this. So if phase 1, I would say recovery, that's like 2010 to call it 2014, 15. And that was taking on all the stuff that happened in 07, 08, 09, 10. I went through this period of time. The banks have lots of assets. People lost they far past depression and acceptance. The real estate is now sitting with the banks. Okay. Then we started to see all that get absorbed, and we started to move into phase 2, which was the expansion phase. And the expansion phase was obviously fixing the stuff that we had just gotten from the banks. But then that's when they started lending again, and we started to see new supply being added. And we'll show you that chart in a second. But Jerry, stay on this chart real quick. Okay, so now we hit, I think, the demand-supply equilibrium point, as you guys all know. That all peaked, I would say, more than likely, probably around 22. And even though rents were still going up, don't forget about the lag. The lag kept it going. So with lag, it still continues to push it. And now we tipped, and now we're we started heading down into 2023. And of course, we're going to slide into 2024 and 2025. And what we're starting to see now on this is commercial real estate, guys. Now, I will talk about residential in a second. But we're starting to see higher vacancy. We're starting to see flattening rents. We're starting to see concessions in the marketplace. We're starting to see higher expenses. And we're starting to see increased vacancies. And what's going to happen is, as you guys know, I use the pig through the python. So these units that started, are under construction. They're making their way through the system. They have to be built. They have to be absorbed. That additional supply helps people. It helps renters, because that means you're not going to have the rent growth and all that kind of stuff. And it's even worse, of course, with a lot of retail, and certainly commercial office is a whole nother story. Commercial office is actually worse and further down on this scale. So now let's jump to the single family chart, the Fred chart. And this is really interesting. And I keep telling you guys, this is a supply problem. So I want you to take a look at when we peaked around 2006, 2007, let's just say. Okay. After that, for some of you might remember, some of you are new to this, in 08, 10, 12, 14, you can start to see again, just look at the chart from prior and you can see we started to recover, let's call it 2012. Okay. So in 2012, the banks are licking their wounds. The lenders are going, that was a rough period of time. It's 3 or 4 or 5 years. Now we're going to start lending again. Things are getting better. But at that point, what I really want you to look at this chart and take a look at is the supply problem. Okay, people were still being born. People were still graduating from school. People were still aging out. People still wanted to move out of their parents' houses. People were still getting jobs. There's a lot of other stuff that's going on during this period of time. So when you do not add supply and it actually does not meet demand, then what happens is you start to see housing prices go up. You start to see rent prices go up. So that's the run we just got. The lag from the lack of supply. If you take a look at multifamily housing, this chart is really not much the same. It's very similar to this. Excuse me. So this is where we are today. Is the completed units, the actual supply itself is what's actually pushing all of this, and then the cheap money. That's a whole nother story, right? So that's now over. And now let's go back to that last chart again, Cherry. If you go back, there you go. So you can see the new construction, what was done peaked in about 2022, and now we're going to head down. So the stuff that was under construction being built is now making its way through the system, and that's where we are.
Yes. So to go back to what I was saying, because the Fed hasn't lowered rates, the new cash is running out, and the reserves it's below the value of the loan.
Yes.
The property's worth below the value of the loan.
So let's focus for a moment on what the interest rates are actually doing to people.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's a lag and a ripple effect to that. So if you're, let's say, a developer or a contractor, let's use both. A developer is somebody who has a master vision and goes to the bank, gets the debt. Okay. That debt right now is 9-10% construction debt. Okay, so they're like, oh, I'm not going to do that. That's almost double what it was just 2 years ago. Okay, if a developer doesn't build, then a contractor doesn't get the work, the subcontractor, the regular contractor. And of course, they're not hiring people, and so there's a whole bunch of stuff on the supply side. This is the same thing with multifamily, with office, with single family. It doesn't really matter. But the debt reduces potential future supply. That's what I want to tell you. Then you also have the people that got that kind of debt 2 years ago, and during the construction phase, their cost of interest also went up. So there's that problem. Okay, now let's flip to residential. So if you're a residential homeowner and you took advantage of all those refinances, or maybe even it was just a brand new purchase, maybe you sold something and bought another one, you're locked at 3%, 4%. If you're an investor, you're not giving up that loan, right? If you're a homeowner, you're not giving up that loan. So people are staying put, and it's reflecting in the lack of supply with the MLS, right? So you have all these factors happening at the same time. So that's what interest rates do. And then on the consumer side, it's even worse, because the consumers are now sitting, they have 20% on their credit cards. The borrowing cost for a vehicle, or the auto industry is following a similar path, similar as real estate, because their mortgage payments, their car payments are going up. So all of these higher interest rate costs are killing everybody. And now, as I said to you guys, we are in the hyper supply phase. We're heading toward the recession supply phase as it relates to the 4 stages of a real estate cycle. And we're heading into the bargaining and depression phase of real estate.
So can you explain what that
Sure.
is?
Well, you're already seeing credit card defaults. You're already seeing car repos. That's way up. We did something on that recently. That's up. People are starting to default on debt. That's actually the bottom line. They're defaulting on debt. And the reason they're defaulting on debt is there's lots of them, but the price of debt has gone up a lot. And they don't have any alternative. So in many, 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 many cases, the property is worth less than the debt. That is actually the scenario. As you guys know, we just did a video last week on YouTube that showed a 100% vacant office building, 117,000 square feet, 100% vacant. I can assure you there was somebody that owned that. I can assure you there was somebody that invested in that. I can assure you that somebody lent against that, and somebody built it, somebody owned it, all of those things. And now it's listed for basically the land cost, and which I don't think is going to even somebody's going to have to rip it down, because they're trying to show it as a conversion, an office building conversion to apartments. That's not happening in that building. And if you want to know why, just take a look at the video. So this stuff is starting to happen. I'm right in the middle of it. As my friend would say, I'm in the catbird seat, because we're starting to see these deals come in. These deals are coming in. They're broken. They're partially leased up. They have high vacancy. Their debt's high. Their expenses are high. And things are not moving like they used to move.
So when it comes to the bank, so if somebody has a loan that it's not cash flowing at the interest rate, and the bank either has to decide to work with them or not work with them, right? And Chris had said on YouTube, he said he believes a lot of banks are going to extend and pretend, which essentially means extend the loan, maybe give them a lower rate, because everyone anticipates that rents are going, or interest rates are going to eventually come down, and we just don't know when, and that will, push values up most likely. So when a bank is deciding to work with, do you feel like a lot of banks are going to extend and pretend?
Yeah,
do you think they're going to call the loans?
Chris, great question. Yeah. So, all right. When you hear the word extend and pretend, because we've heard this before, that's a loan modification. Mm-hmm. Period. Everybody needs to understand it. New contract, new deal. They don't just go, okay, I'll give you another month. That's not how this works. It's a real loan modification. And so they're going to dig in. And what happens during a loan modification? A loan modification, they're going to look at the value of the property, right? Because that's how they're getting paid back. They're like, well, why would I extend a loan where somebody is way below the value of the loan? If somebody is, if the price of the property, like on an office building, is not even worth, a third of the loan, then they're probably not going to extend and pretend. If that that property that we showed was 100% vacant, there's no revenue coming in. They're not going to extend and pretend. There are plenty of scenarios where a lender will extend and pretend. And that is if they have somebody with good credit, they have somebody with other sources of income, they have somebody with other collateral, they have tenants in there. In other words, if the only issue they have is perhaps the interest rate and everything else is sound, then very possible they could extend and pretend. It's in a form of a loan modification. But they're not going to just bump it out like they did when you first got the loan. They're going to extend it for a little while, and there's going to be conditions, and every single one of those is going to be a little bit different. So the banks are all, mark my words, the banks do not want property, period. They do not want. There's something in the bank rating called net charge-offs. So when a bank's rated, just like you are, imagine like your credit score, and you default on a credit card, or you can't pay a bill, or you don't pay a landlord, that makes its way to your credit score. Same thing with the bank. Net charge-off, same thing. Banks are rated based on their charges as a percentage of their total loans. So if they have $100 million in loans, and there's 10 million of charge-offs, then of course you can figure that out. So you're going to start to see this stuff moving through the pipe, and that's why I say 2024 is the bargaining year, but we're moving into depression, because the new money, if they raised any in 2023, they did it on the premise that rates were going to actually go down. They're going down 6 times. As you guys know, I never took that position. I said, I don't know. The Fed's inflation rate is still pretty high, and they say they want to get to 2. Now, whether they ever get to 2 or not, and that's debatable. But the point is, they're not even close, and things are going the opposite way. So it's possible that rates are going to be where they are. They could stay neutral. And let's just say, let's argue, for some of you are probably chirping, well, quarter point here, quarter point there. It's not meaningful. It's nothing, actually. It's nothing. They're not going to lower it by 3/4 of a point or half a point. They'll do a quarter just to test it. And then you got a few more months. And then they'll do another quarter. So,
Yeah, Sarah's saying that Wells Fargo just came out and predicted by the end of 2025 rates to be 6.
Yeah.
So that's in about over a year and a half.
Yeah. So, okay. That's still not even close to what the economy needs.
Right.
It's just not. And also, let's don't forget what happens when the rates go down.
Prices go up.
Yeah.
Generally.
Right. It's the opposite of what the Fed wants. So low cost of money creates bubbles. All right. So the interest rates are used to ignite and create things going on in the economy. That's the whole point. They want people to consume. They want people to buy. They want people to refi. They want people to buy houses. They want all of those things. But that also creates a frenzy, and it creates bubbles. And so we still have this, and we're popping right now. So the Fed's almost in a no-win scenario where they have this inflation issue, which many people would say is significantly higher than actually is being reported. And I agree with that. And then they have this unemployment problem, and they have a shelter problem. They're going to have 2 years of relief on the rent, commercial multifamily. That is for sure going to happen. You're going to see flatness in rent. You're going to see some relief for renters. That's going to all be good from a Fed standpoint. You're not going to see it in the single-family home. The single-family homes, there's just simply not enough. We showed you guys the chart. There's simply not enough. MLS is 50% of what historically it's been, and there's not a lot of new construction because what home builder in their right mind is going to build at 9 or 10%? And they have personal guarantees. They don't even know if they have a buyer because the buyers have these high interest rates. So it's a slippery slope as we head into November.
So do you think if these banks fail, so John had said something about the Dodd-Frank bail-in, where, essentially they use the depositors' money, give them shares, is what he said.
Doesn't happen. Yes.
Do you think that it will?
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you guys, I dug down this rabbit hole a few times. It's interesting, like even with Silvergate and Silicon Security, was it Security? I can't remember the other one. No, none of the depositors lost their money. The FDIC stepped in, even back in 2008 when all the banks were failing. I think there was like 750 banks that actually got consumed and absorbed. You just don't hear about it, right? But if let's say you're in the bank business, you personally, you're probably licking your chops. If you're in really good spot and you have a 1 ranking and you have a lot of liquidity, this might be an opportunity for you as a bank to grow. Okay, so that's how you have to look at it. You just have to put the bank hat on. If I'm a bank, this is what I want. I want to come in. And somebody bought all those assets from those failed institutions. So, I think it was Security they were out of the Northeast. So Security Pacific. And by the way, they got a loan from the FDIC for 3.5%. I don't know if you really want to dig down that hole. So this is a time for banks to grow. And it doesn't necessarily mean all bad. I don't think the depositors are going to lose a nickel. And this is really about trading assets and figuring out which ones are toxic.
Some really good comments on YouTube. So Ramai said the Fed is still printing money, and that's the bottom line.
Yep.
Kane said, an age-old tale you haven't learned. The Fed doesn't dictate prices. Buyers and sellers, supply demand dictates prices. But the Fed continues to want to continue to control home prices.
Yep.
And something John said, he said rates going down doesn't mean banks want to give loans.
Correct.
And this
Very
will be a
good
big
point.
issue in
Very
the future.
good point.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
good point. I forgot that you mentioned that. The banks pull back just like you would. If you've got defaulting debt, I saw this in 08, 9, 10. Like everybody, I don't tell the story very often. But when that was going on and banks were taking back all this stuff, like no banks were lending, no investors were investing. So that's when I went up to Canada and I put together that fund up there. And we started raising money out of Canada. And there's a whole science to that and the whole reason we did it. But for that next few years, we were using Canadian RSP money, retirement savings plan money, just like our 401ks. And that's when we were buying all the stuff in Texas, primarily, multifamily. We still own most of those. And so, yeah, you have to look bigger. That's why you have to think bigger. If you're looking at your little submarket or your state or your city and you're watching little stuff going on, or you're arguing and saying, well, that's not going in I have no new construction. Our rates are fine. Everything's good. All this stuff. Our occupancies in office and retail and multifamily, it's all good. That might be true, but you have to look bigger than that, and you have to take a look at the whole picture because it's super connected, all of it.
Well, and if banks decide not to loan, then that's going to make it harder too.
Right. They've already started to pull back. So with us, we do a lot of agency debt, FHA and Freddie and Fannie, and we're seeing 50-55% loan to value, which basically means 50% down, or 45% down. So they've pulled back already. And so anything that we're buying today, they're hedging. They're still lending. They want to lend. Banks, think of the point. That is the point, is there are people that, imagine if that all came to a standstill. So it's priced differently, and their exposure, their debt service coverages, and their loan to values have changed.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching us on a Sunday. We will see you guys next Monday.
Yeah, we'll see you guys. Cheers. Thank you.
At all. You want to be outside the system at some level.
Yeah, you probably don't want cash in the bank.
Where we are right now is a precarious place. It is global.
What's driving the price of gold?
The bankers know what's coming. Gold doesn't change. The depreciation of the dollar does. The Great Reset, what they're really talking about.
Hi, this is Daniela Cambone, and welcome back to the Daniela Cambone Show here on ITM Trading. And we are back with a fan favorite, David Morgan. He's obviously widely recognized in the precious metals community, and I'm sure you've read or seen him from the Morgan Report. David, always good to be with you. Always appreciate your thoughts on the economy and, of course, life.
Well, Daniela, thanks for inviting me back. It's good to be with you.
Well, I had seen a recent penning of yours where you talk about the current, crisis we're living in, whether you think it's a buildup or an entirely new crisis altogether, but that you think it could actually bring down the entire financial system. And I think I've known you for a very long time, David, but to hear you talk about a complete shutdown of the financial system obviously got me very interested in your latest thoughts here. I think the last time we spoke was November, so let's just do a touch base here because I would argue a lot has changed, but nothing has changed in terms of the economy. Would you not agree or disagree?
I'll go into it. So first of all, when you hear those words, a complete, desolation of the financial system, you've got to put it in the proper context. And so let's say there's a complete decimation of the current system. I don't think it's going to go that far, but let's just go that far. What happens? Well, what happens is that all the wealth stays in place. So all the schools, all the churches, all the department stores, all the automobile factories, all the automobile salespeople, used cars and new cars, everything that exists in the physical economy it stays in place. So nothing goes away. So it's not like the physical economy disappears, which is a connection a lot of people get when you give the idea of a financial collapse. So you have a financial collapse and the physical economy is exactly the same as it was the day before. So what takes place? Well, basically what takes place in a very broad brush idea is the ownership changes. Basically, anyone that is over leveraged and cannot meet their payments, meet their bills, make their car payment, their house payment, their lease payment on their auto dealership, their warehouse or whatever it is, has to mark to market what they have and put it at the market, which would be hugely deflationary in most instances. And the ownership changes, and then things can restart. Now, that's a very broad brush view, but I don't want people to panic that everything stops. It doesn't. What really takes place in almost all instances, except in very long ago instances where it was a certain nation state, is basically do a currency reset or a monetary reset. And again, the broad brush stroke on that is you go from a fiat failure to a gold standard. And then you morph back to a fiat system and you that fails again and you go back to a gold standard. Again, a very broad brush view, but pretty much in a nutshell, how the systems go back and forth. So where we are right now is a precarious place because not only it's not a one nation state, it's not the Weimar Republic, it's not Argentina, it's not Turkey, it's not Argentina. It is global. Now the BRICS have mitigated the problem somewhat by trading with each other's currencies and really circumventing the dollar. But all those dollar debts to all these third world countries and other nation states, first world countries, still exist and must be paid back in dollars. So I see it as what the Davos folks and others talk about, the Great Reset. What they're really talking about is resetting the financial system or the monetary system to a new paradigm where they can actually wipe out or mitigate a lot of this debt that's owed between themselves and between investors and investment banks and on it goes and start over. So again, the physical economy really wouldn't change that much other than who owns it. Well, that's really the biggest question of all because who owns it? If you look at what David Rogers Webb and I have talked
Yeah.
about, and he's done many interviews, I really enjoyed that interview, and he seemed to like it as well. He gave me a nice compliment, but forget me, the principles are more important. But that's part one, and part two is what is the end of it, and that's given us to buy the WEF. You'll own nothing and be happy. So if you look at those two perspectives, I'm not saying I agree that it's true, but we're certainly getting very strong, clear indicators that the elite want it all and we don't get anything. So the ownership change is we don't have anything left. They own it all. Physical economy is basically the same, and there's a one new ownership, which is really disheartening. Of course, I've spent my whole life trying to mitigate this type of a situation, as you well know.
Yeah, I absolutely know that. And I'm happy you brought up David Webb because obviously I know I've interviewed him, you've interviewed him to his point about how they will come for us and take everything, your house, your car, whatever's in the bank, everything. Um, how much of that do you see happening? Are you 100% on the page with him on that?
No, I'm not. I don't think it'll actually happen. I think, Martin Armstrong makes a great case about, let him try it. Uh, I think there's going to be enough pushback and probably rewrite the contract, if you will, from the way it exists. I think Webb has it correct. I mean, I don't argue facts. I mean, I'm convinced reading it enough times that that's what it says at law, and they have the legal ability to do it. But I think there's, as I just said, enough pushback where it'll be rewritten, and that will we get full property rights back like we really uh, had in the beginning of the revolution in the United States? Probably not. I mean, if you really want to examine this, and I'll go a little bit deeper, but the idea of free men and women is really the right to free property or property rights. But you really don't have property rights per se to the extent that most people think they do. Quick example is if you've paid off your mortgage and you own your house outright, in almost every jurisdiction you can imagine, you don't really own it. Like, how is that? Because the you don't have the mortgage, you don't have the debt, but the land basis is owned by the state, and you must pay property taxes because you have the privilege of having your house or your apartment or your duplex on basically their land, and you have to pay rent to them. So, do you really own it? In fact, no. If you have your house paid for and you quit paying your property taxes, you'll find out pretty quickly who really owns it. So, that idea, in my opinion, is wrong. We want a low deal title. When we buy our car, we don't want the manufacturer certificate to stay at the state level, and you just get a certificate that says you're registered owner, which is, as Webb has pointed out, I don't think he did it in the book, I read it, but that you have a beneficiary, which is as good as ownership until it's not, which means, they could come take your car, even if it's paid for. It goes very
And I
deep.
think
I went a little deeper than I wanted to, but it's all can be factual. It could be factual.
no, no, and I love how, whether you agree with, what how Webb or not, um, for you, David, I know because I've known you for so long, you take steps to safeguard and protect your wealth, your investments, your money. And you were one of the first to really sound the alarm on, this is before the banking crisis, and I know I've mentioned this before, but about the money in your bank. And even for me, David, you really made me aware that, well, actually, that's not mine. And just this week, I had an incredible interview with Clive Thompson. Not sure if you know him, David, but he has over 50 years experience in Swiss banking, wealth manager. And he was telling me, yeah, you probably don't want cash in the bank. So here's a true insider from the banking system, now saying it. Whether you'll lose that money or not, it's just about being prepared. So talk to me a little bit about things David Morgan does to be prepared for however or the reset will shape out to be.
Well, we want, security. I mean, money represents security for most people. I mean, the whole idea of like retirement is you have enough savings or some type of investment portfolio that you can live off your interest or your savings. And even if you're halfway through your labor years, you're 30, you plan to retire at 60, you still want that buffer. I mean, having savings of some type is mitigates a lot of problems. You have a health issue, you lose your job, unexpected expense comes or whatever. So the idea is very sound as far as having some kind of a buffer. The problem is, as you outline, that you're really not as safe in a bank as you think you are. You are an unsecured creditor, and the bank really owns your money. Now, on a practical level, I'm not trying to scare anyone. And in most instances, you're going to get your money back. But you got to look at it deeper, like David Rogers Webb did, and say, well, what's that law? What's the worst case if Morgan's right? We get closer to the financial collapse, and it's not the whole world. It's not even the whole country. It's just certain banks. This bank goes down. Okay, the law still applies. So let's just make up a bank called, ZYX Bank fails, and everyone that has an account there gets bailed in. That's what the law says. Well, their neighbor doesn't care because he's at ABC Bank, but that individual that was at the other bank has lost everything at law. So the point is, you want to be outside the system at some level. That could be physical cash. I mean, everyone still uses in the US Federal Reserve notes. What's interesting is you can't even use cash in some instances anymore. I mean, there's some like coffee shops you can't use cash. You got to use a debit card or credit card. And so they're mitigating that right. The other place is, of course, precious metals, and that is outside the system and universally recognized and worldwide. The problem with that is, it's high net value. I mean, I could put, $30,000 in my front jeans pocket between my two pockets in gold coins, and really no one would notice. I can't do that with silver, but you can with gold or platinum. Now, now you've got to negotiate it. You got to find the price. So it's a bit cumbersome because it's not readily acceptable. But if you go to first principles and you look at, where silver really got its roots, it was the money of the people for the people and by the people, and that was its primary function, was money. So how do we put that into the modern era? And you do it through the new technology called blockchain. So if you have silver on your phone and you can do it by the gram, so you can get the equivalent in fiat down to the third or fourth decimal point, now you've got something very powerful. So if you could put that back into the monetary system, and you can, all we need now is education and adoption. You can educate enough people about being outside the system with real money and how easy it is to use, and now you can really push back at them.
Let's take a step back. You mentioned gold and silver. So let's talk about the all-time highs we've seen in gold. I want to get your thoughts on the price action, because you point out there's really been no movement on the gold ETF side. And also in speaking with large wholesalers and a fund manager, you say that the business is basically static. I've also heard this from my friends in the business. So there's no movement on the ETFs. We're not seeing movement, in terms of wholesales. So what's driving the price of gold? Or maybe it's just not here in North America and it's all in China. David Morgan's take.
Well, some of it is from Chinese buying, but it's primarily algorithms and paper trading. That's the crux of it. And why is that? That's a deeper question I really can't answer. I suspect that the bankers at large know what's coming. Their really only defense is to do what I said earlier on the broad brush view. What happens during a collapse? Fiat fails, you go to gold. Fiat fails, you go to gold. And so the central banking community has been taking on gold the last couple of years at a very rapid rate. And now, if maybe they want to mitigate a further, let's say, blip in the system, still believing they're all powerful, which they're not, they might take a futures position that will take, gold at a $2,000 level and see it go to 2,200. I mean, I just checked the charts. I was on a little TV show, to say little, it was on a Mideast television program this morning, giving a gold update for them. And 22 trading days, gold went from $2,024 to $2,224. A $200 increase in 22 trading days, even on the gold market, which is fairly large, is substantial. And this shows you nervousness in the market and who's doing it. I'm guessing it's probably the smart money that wants to buy that cheap $2,000 gold. I want to go a step further. When I wrote one of my first pieces on the internet called Engineering the Price of Gold, people always want to know, well, what is the price of gold? When do I sell it? And you sell it when you sell it. But the theory is, how much gold is there versus how much paper is there? I use M0, what's called the true money supply. If you do the math, dollars and gold, it's how many dollars per ounce of gold. It came out $2,500 an ounce in 2002. And we're only at 2,200 now. If you do that same exact math, the supply of gold in the treasury has not changed. That's a constant. And gold is constant. They're both constants. But what has changed is the M0, the base money supply. You know what the number is now? It's 9 times higher. It's almost $20,000. So, so it's a moving target. Gold doesn't change. The depreciation of the dollar does. And it's been a 9-fold change since roughly 20, 22 years ago.
So to your point, right, when people looking at the price action, maybe investors who've never been in gold or silver, they're looking at the gold price thinking, well, it looks too high here, and they're on the sidelines. What do you tell them?
Well, what I just said, I mean, it's a moving target, so it's hard to aim correctly because you see this, it's a new high, but 2,200 adjusted for today's inflation would have to be much, much higher to be equivalent to 850 on my birthday when I was 27. Gold hit its all-time high on my birthday in 1980. I think I'm in the right business, but I'm trying to make a joke. But the point is, you don't want to focus too much on the paper price. And we all do. Even I do at times. But you want to look at value. What does gold buy in terms of another commodity? What does it buy in terms of a house? What does it buy in terms of men's or women's clothing. You want to see if it's undervalued, not based on price, but based on what it does in the sector on a long-term basis. So, the old adage that an ounce of gold is a men's suit and shoes and a hat and an umbrella and a belt and all that stuff. Okay, fine. So if you could buy a Men's Warehouse, you could buy a clothing store for an ounce of gold, then it's overvalued. That's the kind of thinking you got to kind of train yourself to do to get the idea. But the main idea is buy the right amount, put it away, and forget about it. Because if I'm wrong or this thing muddles on, like the late great Harry Brown told me at the first dinner I got to have with him, you're prepared for what I think is inevitable, but my timing has been less than perfect. And I admit that, I really never thought we could get this far down the road with this much distortions, this much malinvestments, this much maneuvering the markets on hot air, basically coming to the podium and getting behind the lectern and standing up and saying, economy's never been stronger. And people buy that? Well, I'm sorry, I don't, but I've been a lone wolf for a long time. So the point being is you don't have to run your life around gold. In fact, you should just do the opposite. It should be a deposit that you put away, don't think about, and let you sleep well at night and move on with your life, whatever your motivations for your life is.
I agree 100% with that, David. And I mean, just to go one step further, I mean, we've seen the latest from the Fed. They've maintained rates steady, but some, I'll hear, well, I'm going to wait for those 3 rate cuts, that the Fed will do, and then see what gold does. Does it matter?
No, not in the long run. I mean, I was asked that on this TV show earlier today. I mean, they can do whatever they want with the interest rates, and this time it won't work. I mean, last time when Volcker came in, there was so much room in the economy to swallow those kind of heavy yields that were required to pay back the loans that people were giving for buying US dollars in the future. It worked, but it won't this time because we are upside down. There's no mathematical way to pay anything back at this point, let alone the long term, the 10-year note or the 30-year bond. So they have to be discounted or they have to be repriced. And I think there'll be a repricing of some type. Could be that we negate all foreign holders. I mean, we already did it to the Russians. It's, oh, David, you're using your imagination. That will never happen. Look, folks, it's already happened. We basically took what was it, 300 billion that the Russians had and said, persona non grata, your dollars aren't good for transactions anymore. This is very, very serious stuff. And people say, well, you're wrong. Well, how wrong am I? Because you look at type into a search engine retail decimation from 2020 till present day in the United States, and see how many retail stores are gone. Some of these have been around more than 100 years. Type in corporate restaurants decline in revenues and find out how many of these Applebee's and other type of restaurants have closed multiple stores because they're losing money. I mean, the depression doesn't start with an overnight deal. I mean, the 1929s they attributed to the stock market crash, which is a good marker, but it really wasn't that day. A lot of things led into that and after that. And it's the same situation here. We're slowly contracting the economy. The soup lines are getting longer and longer, but you don't see them this time because in the States you get an EBT card, which is fine with me. I'm not against helping others at all. In fact, I'm a pretty giving guy. But the point is, you don't see it because they've got a little plastic card, just like I have when I go through the grocery store. You just don't know that the state is supplying that money to them. But the state runs out of
That's a
money
very good point.
eventually. And when the state runs out of money, then you have further problems.
Yeah. Very good point. And I guess just to extend and wrap on that about you being a very giving person, I always appreciate when you share your thoughts on life. I mean, you came on our inaugural show back in Thanksgiving, and I can't tell you the amount of people that wrote in saying how much of what you said meant to them. And, for maybe people who didn't watch that episode, you were saying how the next time you're at, table with loved ones, you need to put this down because you don't know if you might see that person again. Very somber thought here for today, but I just want to say thank you always for your life insights. And, if you have anything else you could share with us about how you manage kind of the ugliness of everything that you and I have to kind of live in when you're covering financial markets and try and find balance in your life with some harmony.
Yeah, okay. Well, there is on my Twitter. I usually don't do this, but I was asked to write your purpose in life for someone that's not too connected with financial markets. So I did it and put it on Twitter because I'm willing to take a risk, as anyone knows. And it was just there for people to read if they wanted to. If they want to ignore it, ignore it. But really, it comes down to your life, in my perspective. You're asking me what I think, and that is, it's an inside job. I mean, basically, there's a lot of life that you cannot control, but there's a lot that you can. I mean, it basically taught my daughters two things. One is life isn't fair, and two, the only thing you have a lot of control or ultimate control is your attitude. So it's your attitude. It's not how you react, it's how you respond. And we're taught to react, in my opinion, counts. Well, I've been on several interviews, as you know, Danielle, and not that often, but fairly often, someone will say, da 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 da, David, I really like your opinion. And I'll say, I don't have one. You don't have an opinion? No. I don't have an opinion because I haven't formed enough information or have enough data or given enough thought to say something of substance. I mean, I'm not stoic to a great degree. I can be long-winded, but I really want to give the truth as often as possible. And one of the best answers you could give if you don't know something is I don't know. And if you want to explain why I don't have an opinion, it's because I don't know enough about it to have an opinion. And so that's one. But the inside job comes with self-work, self-knowledge, and knowing your flaws, seeing your dark side and working through that. I have no halo and I never will, but I've certainly seen my dark side and I've mitigated that part of myself to recognize it and move through it and beyond it. Because to be a better human being means you've got to look at all aspects. I mean, a good friend, a real friend, will see your flaws and see your high points as well and to point them both out. I mean, if you're out on a rowboat together and you got your oar upside down, a friend will tell you, got your oar upside down. But you've got a pseudo friend, they don't want to hurt your feelings, they'll just say paddle harder. So you got to there's value in life. And, I was, I mean, I had to grow through this stuff. I mean, I was not given the ability, I was given the ability, but didn't have the insight. I was too focused on money being able to solve all problems and bring happiness and all things that, is wrong about money that I believed when I was much, much, much younger. And these best things in life are free really holds a lot of weight. I mean, what can you put on a priceless sunset, be it over the desert or over the water or just from your home? I mean, you can't put a price on that. You can't put a price on a friendship. A friendship to me is worth more than gold. And I'll say one last thing before I go too far, and that is there are people out there that are financially secure. They have a great portfolio. They maybe even overweighted the precious metals, but they won't be able to make it as we go through this transition. And the reason they won't be able to make it as we go through this transition isn't because they don't have enough real money or assets or whatever. It's because they don't have enough inner strength to get through it. And there'll be people that have probably no gold or silver whatsoever that have enough inner strength that will be able to get through it. So I think that would be the way I would wrap it up because that's what really counts. At the
I
end of the day, it's your
Yeah, no, and
memory. It's my memory of our times together on these interviews and when I met you and how gracious you were and vice versa. We muffed the first one and you do it again. Of course I'll do it again. Why wouldn't I? But there are other people whose ego might not be in check and they say, screw it, I gave you my 5 minutes and I got a cocktail party to go to and blow you off, right? So it comes down to being real everywhere and always and consistent. If you're always your higher self, then you're in the best position you can be. And you don't have many
yeah.
regrets. And believe me, I have some, especially from my earlier times, and I certainly make mistakes today. But I strive for what I cannot attain, and that's to be my best always and everywhere.
Oh, thank you, David. I really appreciate that. And I am so grateful to you and our friendship and for like I said, your patience. I remember that first video that didn't go well almost 20 years ago now. And you were so gracious and have always been throughout my career. So I'm thankful for our friendship. And I was, as you're telling that or story, I'm thinking about my best friend, and she'd probably make fun of me until the end of time if I rode backwards or something. So that is a true friend. And you're right, it is more valuable than gold if you have someone like that in your life.
Right.
So thank you, David.
All right. My pleasure. Thank you.
And we'll see you soon, okay?
Okay.
And thank you all for watching. We'll have more great content coming your way. As always, I invite you all to book a strategic session with one of my colleagues over at ITM Trading. You can do so at the link below in the description if you just need help or just want to talk about navigating the current financial market. They're really there to help you. And as always, don't forget to sign up at danielacambone.com so you can stay on top of all these incredible interviews. That's it for me. Thanks for watching.
Have you ever considered the value and significance of precious metals in our lives? This is a question we seldom ponder, but today we are about to embark on an insightful exploration into the intriguing world of precious metals. Our guide on this journey is none other than horologist Stephen Enuru Richardson. With over 30 years of experience in the realms of horology, precious metals, and fine jewelry, Richardson's understanding and insights into these elements are profound and enlightening. Richardson's journey commenced under the mentorship of master metalsmith Emerson Hogan, where he immersed himself in ancient artisan techniques. This solid foundation, coupled with his fascination for antiquity and mechanics, led him to the hustle and bustle of New York City. Here he apprenticed with master watchmaker Aaron, honing his skills and deepening his understanding of the art and science of horology. But Richardson's work extends beyond the mere measurement of time. His unique, complicated timepieces are a testament to human ingenuity, the timeless quest for precision, and the unending pursuit of beauty. His creations are more than just mechanisms that tick and talk. They are masterpieces that bridge the gap between mechanics and artistry. Central to Richardson's philosophy is the use of precious metals like platinum, gold, and silver. These materials are not chosen merely for their aesthetic appeal, but also for their durability, purity, and unique properties. Incorporating platinum and gold gears into his timepieces ensures longevity and minimal maintenance, a testament to his commitment to quality craftsmanship. But the story of precious metals goes beyond their physical applications. These metals also hold profound metaphysical significance, with energetic and healing properties revered since ancient times. In Richardson's view, precious metals are not just commodities, but conduits to higher consciousness and physical well-being. In today's world, where paper currency and digital transactions dominate, Richardson advocates for a return to the tangible value of precious metals. He outlines a practical approach to wealth building that involves regular investment in silver and gold, guided by an understanding of market ratios and the intrinsic value of these metals. Join us as we delve into the alluring world of precious metals with horologist Stephen Enuru Richardson. This journey promises to be as enlightening as it is fascinating, offering a fresh perspective on the true power and potential of these elemental resources. In the realm of horology, precious metals are more than just decorative elements. They are the lifeblood of a sophisticated timepiece, the secret ingredient that transforms a mundane watch into an enduring work of art. Platinum, gold, and silver, these precious metals have found a rightful place in the world of horology, and for good reasons. First, let's delve into the world of platinum. This impressive metal boasts an undeniable durability that sets it apart. Its resistance to wear, tarnish, and corrosion makes it an ideal choice for watch components that need to withstand the test of time. And beyond this durability, platinum brings a weighty presence and a stunning white sheen that radiates pure elegance. Moving on to gold, a metal that has captivated human imagination since the dawn of civilization. Its rich, warm glow is a symbol of luxury and prestige. But gold's value in watchmaking extends beyond its aesthetic appeal. Gold is highly resistant to rust and tarnish, making it perfect for crafting tiny, intricate parts that demand minimal maintenance. And then there's silver. Silver might not be as glamorous as gold or as durable as platinum, but its unique properties make it a cherished metal in watchmaking. Silver is highly conductive, a quality that proves beneficial in the creation of certain watch components. Not to mention, its cool, lustrous shine adds a touch of understated elegance to any timepiece. In essence, the use of these precious metals in watchmaking is all about balancing beauty and functionality. They provide the timepiece with an aesthetic appeal that is matched by their durability, purity, and unique properties. These metals contribute significantly to the longevity of the timepiece and the reduction of maintenance needs. But what's most remarkable is how these metals are brought to life by a skilled craftsman. In the hands of a master like Richardson, they become more than just materials. They are shaped, molded, and transformed into intricate components that make up the heart of a timepiece. In the hands of a skilled craftsman like Richardson, precious metals become the heart of a timepiece. Beyond their physical attributes, precious metals hold profound metaphysical significance. This statement may seem lofty, but when we delve into the rich tapestry of human history and spirituality, we find a golden thread, quite literally. Silver and gold in particular have been revered since ancient times, not just for their tangible value, but for their metaphysical properties. They have been celebrated in mythologies, used in rituals, and worn as amulets for protection and healing. Let's take a moment to explore the energetic and healing properties of these metals. Silver, often associated with the moon in various cultures, is believed to possess a cooling, calming energy. It is said to improve communication, enhance perception, and stimulate creativity. No wonder it's been a favorite of poets, artists, and dreamers throughout the ages. Gold, on the other hand, is associated with the sun. It is said to emit a warm, vital energy that promotes self-confidence, willpower, and success. In ancient cultures, gold was often used in healing practices, believed to help rejuvenate the body and enhance mental faculties. But it's not just about individual properties. When used together, silver and gold can create a balance, harmonizing different aspects of our being. This interplay between the lunar and solar energies, the cool and the warm, the receptive and the active, mirrors the dynamic balance we strive for in our lives. These metals, however, are not just passive carriers of energy. They are believed to have purifying properties, helping to cleanse the physical and the energetic body from negative influences. This purification process is not just symbolic, it's a deeply transformative process that can lead to healing and renewal. So next time you look at a piece of gold or silver jewelry or a beautifully crafted watch, remember you're not just looking at a commodity, you're looking at a piece of the universe, a piece of history, and a tool for transformation. Indeed, precious metals serve as conduits to higher consciousness and physical well-being. In our digital age, the tangible value of precious metals stands as a solid foundation for wealth building. This statement, from renowned horologist Stephen Inuru Richardson, invites us to reconsider the way we perceive wealth and investment. Richardson's approach to wealth building is rooted in an ancient understanding of value. He encourages regular investment in silver and gold, two precious metals that have held their worth across cultures and centuries. Unlike the fleeting nature of digital transactions and the uncertainty of paper currency, these metals provide a tangible and enduring form of wealth. They are not subject to obsolescence or the whims of technology. They do not rely on complex algorithms or speculative markets. Instead, their value is intrinsic, grounded in their rarity, their beauty, and their myriad applications. Understanding the market ratios of silver and gold is key to Richardson's investment strategy. These ratios, which express the relative value of one metal to the other, have fluctuated throughout history. By keeping an eye on these shifts, investors can make informed decisions about when to buy, sell, or hold their assets. For example, when the ratio is high, it indicates that silver is undervalued relative to gold. This could be an opportune time to buy silver, with the expectation that its value will eventually rise. Conversely, when the ratio is low, it might be a good time to purchase gold. Of course, these decisions should always be made in the context of one's personal financial goals and tolerance for risk. Market ratios, however, are only part of the story. According to Richardson, the real power of investing in precious metals lies in recognizing their intrinsic value. Gold and silver are not simply commodities to be bought and sold. They are elemental forces of nature, with unique properties and profound significance. They are materials that humans have treasured for millennia, using them to craft beautiful objects, facilitate trade, and symbolize the divine. In this sense, investing in precious metals is not just a financial strategy, it's a way of connecting with our shared human history and the natural world. It's a way of asserting that wealth is not merely about accumulating numbers in a bank account, but about appreciating the tangible and enduring things in life. Moreover, investing in precious metals is a way of hedging against the uncertainties of the future. In times of economic instability, these metals often retain their value or even appreciate, providing a safe haven for investors. They represent a solid foundation upon which to build and preserve wealth, regardless of the economic climate. Wealth building with precious metals is not just about financial security, but also about recognizing the true foundations of wealth. With these words, Richardson invites us to embrace a holistic view of wealth, one that values not only financial stability but also the beauty, history, and enduring value of the natural world. Looking forward, precious metals hold the promise of a sustainable and innovative future. This isn't just a hopeful statement, it's a vision shared by many, including our horologist and craftsman Stephen Enuru Richardson. Richardson foresees a future where precious metals are not just desired for their aesthetic appeal or their traditional value. Instead, he envisions a resurgence in the appreciation and utilization of these metals, with their worth recognized across multiple domains, from craftsmanship and investment to new technologies and sustainable practices. When we speak of sustainable practices, a key aspect is ethical mining. Mining for precious metals has often been associated with harmful environmental practices and inhumane working conditions. Richardson, however, believes that a shift in our approach is not just possible, but essential. He advocates for responsible mining practices that respect both the environment and the people involved in the process. Ethical mining is not merely an idealistic concept, it's a practical necessity for the longevity of our planet and the preservation of precious metals for future generations. In addition to ethical mining, recycling is another avenue Richardson highlights for the future of precious metals. Recycling saves energy, reduces landfill waste, and decreases the need for new mining. It's a process that takes what is old and reshapes it into something new without depleting our planet's resources. Precious metals, due to their durability and resistance to tarnish, are particularly suited for recycling. As we become more conscious of our environmental impact, the recycling of these metals is likely to play an increasingly significant role, but the future of precious metals isn't limited to sustainability. Richardson also foresees innovative applications of these metals. For example, in the field of technology, precious metals like gold and silver are already being used due to their superior conductivity and resistance to corrosion. As technology continues to evolve, the demand for these metals is likely to increase. Moreover, precious metals may play an essential role in the development of green technologies. Take silver, for instance. It's a critical component in solar panels due to its excellent conductivity. As we move towards more sustainable energy sources, the demand for silver could rise significantly. But whatever the future holds, Richardson's vision is clear. We need a renewed appreciation for precious metals. This means understanding their true value, not just in terms of monetary worth, but in their potential to contribute to a sustainable and innovative future. In the end, the future of precious metals is not just about their continued use, but about a renewed appreciation for these elemental resources. This is a call to action for all of us, to reevaluate our relationship with these elemental resources, and to honor their value in shaping a sustainable and innovative future. The power of precious metals extends far beyond their glittering surface. As we've journeyed through the captivating world of precious metals, we've seen their significance not only in the realm of horology and fine craftsmanship, but also their intrinsic value, applications, and metaphysical properties. Our guide, Stephen Enuru Richardson, has shared his profound insights, illustrating the journey from raw materials to artful masterpieces. We began our exploration with the art and science of horology. Richardson's journey, which started under the tutelage of master metalsmith Emerson Hogan, led him to New York City to apprentice with master watchmaker Aaron. His dedication to designing and crafting unique, complicated timepieces has garnered him celebrity status. But for Richardson, his work is not merely about keeping time, it's a testament to human ingenuity and the timeless quest for precision and beauty. We then delved into the use of precious metals in watchmaking, central to Richardson's philosophy. Platinum, gold, and silver are chosen not just for their aesthetic appeal, but also for their durability, purity, and unique properties. The incorporation of platinum and gold gears into the timepieces ensures longevity and minimal maintenance, showcasing the intersection of art, science, and nature. Our exploration took us beyond the physical applications of precious metals to their profound metaphysical significance. Richardson emphasized the energetic and healing properties of metals like silver and gold, revered since ancient times for their ability to purify, heal, and energize. His insights invited us to view precious metals not just as commodities but as conduits to higher consciousness and physical well-being. In a world dominated by paper currency and digital transactions, Richardson champions a return to the tangible value of precious metals. He outlined a practical approach to wealth building with regular investment in silver and gold, guided by an understanding of market ratios and the intrinsic value of these metals. This strategy is not only about financial security, it's a philosophical stance on the importance of connecting with the elemental forces of nature and recognizing the true foundations of wealth. Looking forward, Richardson envisions a resurgence in the appreciation and utilization of precious metals. He calls for a reevaluation of our relationship with these elemental resources, urging a move towards ethical mining, recycling, and innovative applications that honor the earth and its finite treasures. We've seen that the power of precious metals extends far beyond their glittering surface. They are integral to the art of horology, hold profound metaphysical properties, represent a solid foundation for wealth building, and are key to future sustainable practices. In the words of our guide, Stephen Anuru Richardson, precious metals are not just commodities, they are a testament to human ingenuity, a bridge to higher consciousness, and the true foundations of wealth.
All right, family. Hope I'm coming in loud and clear. Hope you guys can hear me. So much to do, so little time. In today's insight into the actual trustee training course that we're actually going over, it's essential that you understand the fundamentals of precious metals in conjunction with trust administration. These things actually correlate and work together for the greater good of the practitioners. As a caveat, what we try to do here in this particular environment is to provide you tangible information that's applicable. Now, again, this is being actually, this is a part 6 of an entire 12 plus series. I'm simply making this particular one available for those that may not be inside of our actual paid space to kind of demonstrate a certain level of applicability with all things that are happening in the world of commerce. If you've been paying attention, there's a lot of volatility in the world of stock markets. There's a lot of volatility in the world of currency and precious metals. And this volatility also is tethered to the interest rates governing certain loans dealing with certain said properties, mortgages, etc. So all these things are actually connected. And here we're trying to demonstrate and show the connectability of all things by highlighting certain aspects. So I'll give a real world example to kind of show you the ability to leverage a lot of this intel. Which we'll start with our newest lender with our to our actually family offices that actually do capital for family offices, small businesses, etc. Let me just share my screen here and I can kind of walk you through this proponent here. All right, let's see. We're going to go right here. All right. We talked earlier today about checks and banking in the digital age. I covered a lot of information pertaining to UCC 3-104 subsection F, UCC 4-102A, breaking down the fact that Article 3 and Article 4 of the UCC governs relations and issues relating to checks. As noted in the preceding chapters, Article 3 establishes the requirements for all negotiable instruments, including checks. Article 3 also sets forth the rights and responsibilities of parties to negotiable instruments. Article 4 establishes a framework for deposits and checking agreements between the banks and its customers. That's important because you got to understand how these things all correlate. So with that being said, let me now share with you in the same space a quote unquote new addition to our lending family. And I don't know if you guys can see my screen or not. Let me just double check to see that it did kind of
go over. Yes, it did. Okay, so we have a company called Rock, ROK, minus the C, ROK Financial. And they sent over a product matrix that I'm going to explain for those of you that are already brokers with our two other affiliates, which is Go Capital and also North Avenue Capital. Matter of fact, I'm just going to go down because you already know about working capital loans, term loans, SBAs, equipment financing. I'm going to start there and then I'm going to go into factoring, so forth and so on. Now, anything that you're going to need as far as equipment that's going to be under 250K, what's required by Rock Financial is a funding application and the last 4 months business bank statements, and of course, an equipment invoice. Because when you're dealing with equipment, the actual equipment is the collateral, so it's about knowing what your ability to repay the actual lease agreement. So that's why they need to know the bank statements, the volume, this, that, and so forth. Now, of course, if you're dealing with anything over 250K, they're going to want the last 3 years business tax returns and business debt schedule and current year-to-date financials. So what you notice is anything under 250K, you're going to need an application of 4 months business bank statements and the actual invoice. Over 250K, you're going to need quote-unquote current yield, financial balance sheets, and so forth. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm gonna do something that I normally don't do. I'm going to take this document and show you what's really obvious that one could do if they really understood this asymmetric information. Under 250K, over 250K. So we're going to say all accredited investors have to demonstrate an ability to yield 250K per year for 2 years consecutive. So we're going to say that all accredited investors should somehow, some way be able to be in this proponent of equipment financing at the over 250K proponent. So of course, because they revenue 250K per year, they've done it 2 years consecutive, they should be able to show the last 3 years business tax returns of showing that 250K that they made. Then they just need to show their business debt schedule. This is where they get to publicize their liabilities. So there should be an audited financial showing the debt schedule. Then, of course, a current year-to-date financing or a balance sheet or profit and loss could easily be a UCC1 financing statement. So if you got an accredited investor that can show last 3 years business returns, can also show an audited financial publicizing their debt, and then a current year-to-date UCC1, then doing this type of equipment financing is pretty simple. I'm going to move down to accounts receivable factoring. I want you to pay attention to this. Once you get the application filled out, you're going to need invoices to be leveraged. And these are invoices based on receivables. Then you're going to need a current balance sheet. Then you're going to need an agent report for your accounts receivables, accounts payables. Those reports are going to consist of UCC1s, UCC3s, and UCC5s. And then you need a customer list. The reason why you need a customer list is because the funders of factoring are not really looking at you. They're looking at your customers that you're doing business with. Let me show you something. You guys have heard of Firestone, right? The tire company Firestone. Now, I'm going to go back in my heyday because way back in the day when I was younger, I used to be a business broker and I used to help institutions sell businesses. So I'm going to go back into my playbook of many moons ago and how these deals used to be structured. Okay. An ideal candidate for a Firestone franchise would be a business that dealt with any type of transportation where that transportation is presently requiring tires on their vehicles. So it didn't matter whether you was a diesel mechanic shop, you was an automotive mechanic shop, you deal with RVs, boats, etc. If you deal with tires in any form of fashion, Firestone is interested in you becoming a franchisor, a franchisee, if that makes sense, in that regard. All right. Now, here's what you would get. Now, last time I checked the numbers, because I had a deal last year that I had a client that was interested in going into trucking and transportation, and I gave him something very similar. This is not exact. I'm leaving certain things out to protect the innocent. I'm just demonstrating how you would utilize this AR factoring. If your customers are companies like Firestone, Firestone allows their franchise players to actually leverage their company's credentials. Like, I'm just going to read something to you that you might not know in this regards. For example, a lot of folks don't know how much it actually, don't know what the cost it is to actually go into owning a Firestone franchise. One of the primary costs associated with starting a Firestone franchise is the franchise fee. The franchise fee is the amount you pay to obtain the rights to operate under the Firestone brand. While specific figures may vary, this fee typically ranges from $20,000 to $40,000, and this was in 2023. The initial setup and equipment, in addition to the franchise fees, you'll need to consider the cost of setting up your Firestone franchise location, purchasing necessary equipment. That's where we're coming in. The cost of your initial setup will depend on the factors as size of the store, location, and any renovations needed. Equipment costs can also vary significantly, and you'll need to invest in an automotive diagnostic tools, repair equipment, tire mounting and balancing machines, and more. These costs can range from several $1,000s to tens of thousands of dollars, depending upon the complexity of your offering. It's essential to work closely with here's another one. You're also going to be dealing with real estate and leases. Then you're going to also be dealing with inventory and supplies. Then you're going to be dealing with marketing and advertising. So right here, if someone was looking at, quote unquote, what is the ideal business for accounts receivable factoring? Well, a Firestone institution would be ideal because of the things I just named. But don't get ahead of yourself. Let's talk about this $20,000 to $40,000 and gives you the right to use this particular Firestone brand. Well, of course, if you have the franchise in this capacity, the franchise is going to be tied to a Dun & Bradstreet rating and a tax ID number. So when you're applying for leases and loans and things of that sort, you get to use the Firestone brand's credentials with the institution that's in question. A lot of individuals who do not understand what I just explained totally miss that. And this is something that is very helpful for very small companies. The easiest loans I've ever had to deal with were factoring, because you could take a very small operation who's willing to do business with a large corporation that had a Dun & Bradstreet rating, and you can get the deal done in 24 hours because of all these things I just explained. Now, the ideal candidate is a business that wanted to be in the business of tires. They're going to end up with real estate and equipment and all this other stuff, but their primary business, their participating activity is the sale of tires, commercially, residential, whatever the case, however you look at it. What I'm demonstrating is, in that mechanism alone, with that type of product like AR factoring, an application, invoices to be leveraged for be all that equipment, the actual lease could be put in that invoice, it gets very lucrative. And this is something that can be done tomorrow, in my opinion. Having Rock Financial as part of because Go Capital had stopped doing factoring. They used to do it when I first started rocking with them about 5 years ago. and then they lost a lot of these type of companies. So it's great to have this mechanism in place for my new practitioners so they'll be able to really scale. Now, again, a small mechanic shop could easily use accounts receivable factoring to get themselves into a larger pool. A small landscaping company could do the exact same thing. This is one of the products that a lot of people don't really understand because they don't have a certain level of experience in certain industries. But it's all accounting. So again, I kind of cheated a little bit. You know, at 16 years old, I did have a vocational degree. You know, we did mechanic. Used to have shop in school. You know, I went to school. You know, many trades to learn how to be a welder, a mechanic, this, that, and the other. So I knew a lot about the industries just from a certain perspective. Knew very little about the banking aspect of it, but I understood it from an applicable standpoint. And I'm using this to demonstrate how a practitioner really needs to look at the actual services of a company like Rock Financial and how you make it applicable in the marketplace. Let's go now to inventory financing because it requires what? A funding application, last 3 years financial statements, those are UCCs, and profit and loss and balance sheets, a current financial balance sheet and profit and loss, most recent AR, accounts receivable, accounts payable, aging reports. That's going to be a UCC5, and then a inventory report of what you have in inventory, and then work in progress report, meaning this is work that you have on the books that you need this particular financing for to complete the work. That's a very good mechanism you can use. And these, again, are going to be businesses that provide some sort of tangible product and or service, inventory, if you will. Then you also have purchase order financing. Purchase order financing, just like what it sounds, you're going to need the last 3 years, exact same thing you needed in the other one. In addition, you're going to need copies of what? The purchase order to be financed. So these are things that, and you got to remember, the invoices to be leveraged could be a lease agreement. The purchase order could be a purchase order for said building or whatever that's going to be used in that regard. You can get very creative with this aspect. I know a lot of practitioners right now that through previous trainings who got real good synergy just by dealing with these type of products. So I'm using this to demonstrate that having Rock Financial on top of North Avenue Capital and Gold Capital gives us a good way to really get a lot of different things done. I hope you guys are actually following what I'm putting down and really looking at this from an all-point bulletin. And again, from earlier today, if you hadn't had a chance to actually go to the website and do the financial needs analysis and go through answering all the questions, please do so we can properly get you on the schedule for the other services. I got a couple of folks that actually already gone through that. I just haven't pulled the trigger as of yet because I want to get this class out of the way so I can go ahead and dedicate my time and focus to getting those institutions that completed those questionnaires in place with their financial needs analysis, for the various different things that can be utilized. But I just want to just take out a little time to demonstrate that. We got a lot of things to do. This is going to be a very, very busy week for implementation. Again, we now have a brand new lender in the midst, which is Rock Financial. For those of you that are interested in going forth and getting yourself totally acclimated into this proponent, I want you to reach out to the office by sending an email of sorts or message me inside of Bitrix one way or the other, and go to the website and at least complete all of the questions so that way we're not just scrambling around trying to figure out exactly who's what. Now, again, when you answer the questions, you're going to have to provide documentation when the algorithm actually pulls this in. So be prepared to provide these following things. Before I jump off of here, I want you to realize that a lot of these products require business bank accounts, business tax returns, etc. The question that a lot of people say, well, dang, what if I don't have that? That doesn't mean the deal goes dead. That means how do I put one together so I do get them into that proponent? And again, I'm not going to go into the proprietary proponent of taxes and accounting. We do that in a whole different class. What I will say, which is the title of this class, if you understand how to publicize liabilities in order for you to privatize profit, then you're able to do the proper reporting with these returns. You're able to do the proper 8302 return scenarios with these UCCs. Today is the official quote unquote public tax day, where those that are in the public are either seeking extensions or getting their documentation postmarked, to basically get their returns before they're penalized. And everyone that has done anything with the IRS that didn't attach that information to a UCC needs to be your client. You need to get them into the system. Do it now, because you're either going to see me now or see me later. But if you don't see me now, it's going to cost you more. And with that, I hope you guys are picking up what's being put down. Before I jump out of here, you guys that are actually inside of the YouTube link, if you got any questions, please post some of the questions inside of the YouTube. I'll give a stab at it and see if I can get, maybe some questions answered before I jump out of here. If not, I will go forth and go ahead and get a couple of things going in that regard with what's being implemented. But if you got any questions you would like to post inside the chat, please do so. If not, then I will, basically, continue to plug along and chug along and, get everybody what they need. But tell you what, while you fester in terms of trying to figure out whether you got any questions or not, keep listening, because if you listen long enough, you definitely will learn something.
This episode of the What the FinTech podcast is sponsored by Quant. Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of What the FinTech, the podcast from the team behind FinTech Futures and the Banking Technology magazine. My name is Paul Hindle, editor of FinTech Futures, and for this episode we're joined by Gilbert Verdian, CEO of blockchain technology company Quant. Gilbert, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul. It's great to be here.
Excellent. It was great to have you here. And just to get started, would you like to quickly let us know a bit more about yourself then and the work you're doing at Quant?
Yeah, of course. We're a blockchain pioneer in the space where we're helping organizations transform to regulated assets in the form of digital assets, in the form of digital money, tokenized bank deposits, commercial bank money, and central bank digital currencies, and how they can integrate that simply and easily within their existing core business applications.
Excellent. Sounds great. And again, great to have you here, and thanks so much for taking the time out to speak with us today. On the show this week, we'll be diving deeper into blockchain technology and its evolving role in the financial services space. In particular, we'll take a look at some of the big emerging trends in the space, including tokenization and its use cases within banking and capital markets, digital assets, including the rise and future of central bank digital currencies, and the potential benefits of programmable payments for consumers amid the rise in digital wallet usage and digital transactions. That's all to come a bit later, but as always, we'll open with our news in numbers segment. So this is where our guest has gone out and found a news story featuring an interesting number to discuss and get us started. So Gilbert, what have you brought along for us today?
I think everyone has been very focused on the hot topic of AI in the last few months, and people are really looking at what AI can do from a business perspective or generative AI in terms of the creative industries. But what we found is over the next 2 years, firms in financial services are planning to increase their investment in blockchain and DLT by 20%, whereas AI, it's 21%. So blockchain is just as important and a hot topic for financial services as AI, and it hasn't gone away.
Excellent. Yeah, it seems like, a lot of things have been taking a back seat to AI recently. It has been the big topic of the last year or so now. I guess when you look at these kind of numbers then, does that highlights, as you mentioned there, blockchain's importance, that it's maybe been quietly going about its business away from the hype and finding its place in the sector now?
Yeah, I think the very nature of blockchain, it's not very visible, and it is an infrastructure, and people will, in the future and in the near term, will be using a lot of blockchain technology without even realizing it. So by its very nature, it is there to enable trust between different intermediaries, to enable transactions and assets to flow on a new rail, on a new infrastructure, and then to do settlement in a slightly different way by giving people access to the asset or the funds that they can use digitally. It is quite transformative in financial services, and that's why it's quite important right now, and just as a hot topic, same as AI. What we're seeing is that evolution of what is this concept of blockchain, what does it do, how do we understand it, to where people today are actually looking at, we understand what it means, we see the benefits and the use cases of what blockchain can do, but tied to that, we're seeing the financial business case. You know, if we use and adopt blockchain technology for a particular flow, for a particular system, it really enables new bottom line revenue increase, cost savings in terms of doing things more efficiently, but then differentiating by having that technology embedded, you're able to create new forms of products. And you touched on a few, and you mentioned central bank digital currencies, programmability, tokenization. All of those things are new asset classes of instruments and an evolution of what we've already got. So they're far superior, and people are seeing the dollar signs that come with that.
Before we move into some of the big innovations that we're seeing in the space at the moment, then can you, and you gave us a little bit of an intro at the start of the podcast, can you tell us a little bit more then about Quant and your position in the blockchain market? What kind of services and products do you offer?
So we're one of the early pioneers. I mean, the story of Quant started during the financial crisis when I was in HM Treasury trying to keep the economy running and the country safe. And this paper comes out and it really interested me as a cybersecurity person. So the whole idea of using a new form of network to enable trusted transactions, really, it got me thinking. And, you know, it was very early on. So as the UK, we were quite early to assess the potential of blockchain back in 2009 as a country and as a government. But also since then, it was all around, well, how do we make this mainstream and how do we make this global and easily acceptable by institutions and governments and enterprise? And for us, it was all around solving interoperability. Why do we need to force people to use one particular type of digital asset, one particular type of transaction, one particular type of blockchain? It should be uniformly interoperable, where everyone can flow and transact between all different types of networks without any silos or limitations. So that's what we set out to solve at Quant, and we did that very early on in 2017. We used our experience in enterprise and in institutions to create an enterprise approach for enabling digital assets and enabling interoperability of digital assets in all its forms, but also allowing that to easily integrate into existing core systems, banking, payments, whatever it may be. And the work that we've been doing is around using our platform, which is called Overledger, to create central bank digital currencies. We did the work with the Bank of England and the BIS on Project Rosalind. We issued the digital pound. We created the infrastructure around it, around the API, and then we allowed the industry to test in a real world setting what a central bank digital currency looks like for them in terms of the payment flows. And then since then, we've been working in the same space around tokenizing commercial bank deposits, how to enable the functionality of what we brought to CBDCs through programmability. Multi-party lock systems was a new invention where you're able to create logic and programmability into money, so it can actually have conditions, transactions, events, all of those things built into money. When they occur and they're authorized, then the money can be released by the process. So all of that programmability and automation tied to a tokenized digital asset is where the market is heading and where the infrastructure is heading. So we're seeing that evolution from traditional finance to, we call it digital finance, because most of the finance we have today is electronic, and that was done 30, 40 years ago. And now we're seeing the beginnings of the transformation to digital finance in the forms of digital asset classes and in the forms of digital money, CBDCs, commercial bank deposits.
Sounds great. And yeah, you've touched on tokenization there as well. We're hearing a lot about that at the moment. Why are banks and other financial institutions then so excited about tokenization, and what are some of the key benefits to come from that?
So tokenization, technically, it's something that makes something a digital asset. It could be a physical asset, it could be an existing security, it could be anything. And what tokenization allows you to do is to encompass that in a new form and fractionalize that asset. So if it's illiquid, you automatically have a digital version of that asset where it can be quite liquid, and it can be very, from a velocity perspective, very easily moved and transacted globally. So you're not operating in silos. Your asset can pretty much transact anywhere in the world. So tokenization is the ability to create new asset classes. Larry Fink from BlackRock says tokenization is securitization on steroids. Or you take existing assets such as funds, bonds, securities, equities, derivatives, whatever they are, and you tokenize them in a new form. And then that way you have a better representation of that asset that is easy to transact because it's pretty much near real time. The complexity of post-trade processes come down. The velocity of the asset goes up because you're able to transact it with different types of investors all around the world. But then also the settlement of that asset tied to tokenized money, which is either a CBDC or commercial bank deposit, is going to really transform how assets are transacted globally. So you're able to have almost T+0 near real-time settlements with all the programmability embedded within the assets themselves. So the processes around making a trade are simplified and they become instant. And that's why it's exciting, because it really changes from the issuer's perspective. It changes how they can actually represent their assets, but it also gives investors access to new forms of assets, because you don't have to be a fund to access this asset or this fund that's listed on an exchange. You don't have to be a high net wealth individual with criteria to be able to access 500K minimum tickets just to get access to a new asset class. And you get access to better liquidity from the other end. So instead of just only selling you the asset and trading the asset on one venue, you can trade on all venues because the asset is interoperable. It can work across networks and borders. So it's exciting from an investor perspective because they get better returns, better access to funds, different types of funds, and smaller portions of funds. And then it's better from an issuer's perspective because they get access to better liquidity because it becomes global in nature.
Excellent. And what are some of the key innovations that you're seeing in this space then? And how have you been looking to tap into tokenization?
I think tokenization has started. It was experimented with, and we saw some very early trials of tokenization around bonds, ESG, something with lighter regulation. But I think with the introduction of ETFs and with the introduction by the FCA, by ETNs, I think we're able to now start seeing new types of funds. And what we're seeing is the asset managers are looking at ways they can reduce their costs, are looking at ways they can actually improve how they serve their customers and their investors. And tokenization is one of the answers to that. So we're seeing a market embracing tokenization because it gives those benefits that was highlighted earlier. And they're either doing it themselves if they're large enough, or they're working with investment banks, or they're working with third parties. And so we're seeing a lot of custody solutions helping asset managers to hold these new forms of assets. But then we're also seeing on the investment bank side, a lot of sell side activity where they're providing digital asset services to the asset managers on the buy side. And what they're doing is really enabling that automation of tokenization, fund management, the trading and transacting, and then the settling in a new way. And so I think we're right at the beginning of that, and we're yet to see where the market will play out. But I won't be surprised if new and exciting listings start to pick tokenized assets as their preferred asset class rather than traditional securities and traditional assets, because it gives them better access to markets, better access to liquidity, more investors. And then we'll see a transition where you can have both an asset or an instrument that is traditional, it operates as normal, but then you can have the same one as a digital asset, or everyone will start migrating to digital assets in the near future. So we're yet to see what's going to happen.
Excellent. And on the digital asset front, then, with central bank digital currencies have been making a lot of headlines recently. What would you say are the key use cases there, and what's the role of CBDCs in the future global economy?
I think the difference, and this is what we did with the Bank of England BIS work, was to define and identify what's so different about a digital pound compared to a normal pound. And it comes down to the current form of money is electronic. So we have electronic pounds. It's very binary. It's a push and a pull. And that's pretty much what all money can do today. And it's been that way for 30 plus years. It seems that it's no longer fit for purpose because we're operating and living in a very digital society where A lot of our workflows, a lot of our transactions are digital in nature, and we need a bit more from money itself. So the work was to set out and answer that question. And what we concluded was it really comes down to the programmability, the ability to have logic built into the money itself for the first time. So then money becomes digital because it's no longer very bland and binary and it's a push and a pull. Now you can actually add a lot more functionality and logic into money. And that was really enabled by the multi-party lock system from the project. And that means you're able to code logic into money when something happens, when an event happens, a trigger happens, or a condition is met, or an authorization is done, the money is moved. It's in a lock state until those events have happened. And when that is triggered, then the money is released. So from that use case, a very simple thing is you can tell money, if this happens, then do that. So a very simple example, just on the consumer side, is today people get paid end of the month, let's say. You have your direct debits and your money is taken out on the same day. Sometimes, for no fault of anyone, your salary is not paid in on time or at the time you expect, or your direct debits are taken out earlier than your salary is paid. And then you get overdrawn for that particular day, which is a bad experience. It's bad friction, and no one likes that. So what you can do with a digital pound is you can potentially program it and say, when my salary comes in, 1 hour after it comes in, then take these 3 direct debits. So you're never overdrawn. So that logic is very simple from a consumer perspective, but the experience is very different because you don't get overdrawn. And then you can code that into your money and into your digital pound. So that was a very simple use case. But then you look at capital markets and you look at B2B, then you can code that same logic into authorizations, milestones, verifications by a third party. If the delivery of this service or good has happened, it's independently checked and authorized by a third party. When that happens, then release the funds. That way you're really moving counterparty risk and you're managing a whole bunch of complex reconciliation on both ends and all these manual things that you had to do, but putting that into money itself. So the money does that for you. So it's really transformative. And we saw lots of use cases where banks and payment firms use that functionality to create this new form of product and this new form of payments. That was delivery reverse payment. It could have been authorizations. If something happens, then release this. Home loans, all of those things can be really simplified and automated because you can put that into money for the first time.
Yeah, and I mean, especially in the US of late, there's been a lot of focus on privacy concerns, worries about potential government control when it comes to CBDCs. What's your take on all that talk, and will they ever gain the full trust of consumers?
I think that's a global concern by consumers. But the thing is, we've seen the same type of behavior and concerns every single time there was a new innovation in banking and in payments, for example. So we saw people being concerned when we moved from cash to debit cards. They had this very big worry that everyone's going to, look at your transactions and why am I paying with this plastic thing? Cash is king. And then the same with check, and then the same with credit cards. And then, there is that fear of the unknown. And from a privacy perspective, what we've got in the banking system today applies. It applies to all forms of payments, including a central bank digital currency.
AFINet, it is important to emphasize the synergistic relationship between these entities. The integration of IOTA into the RSI platform, supported by the compliance expertise of CCG and the financial services provided by AFINet, creates a comprehensive ecosystem that empowers users to harness the benefits of IOTA and navigate the evolving digital landscape with confidence. In conclusion, from an authoritative and academic standpoint, an IOTA account is an essential tool in the RSI ecosystem. It enables secure and feeless transactions, enhances compliance and transparency in supply chains through CCG, and provides efficient financial services via AFINet. The integration of IOTA within RSI showcases the platform's commitment to innovation, efficiency, and emerging technologies in the realm of arbitration, compliance, and financial services. From an authoritative and academic perspective, an IOTA account is a fundamental component within the RSI, CCG, Comply Chain Guard, and AFINet ecosystem, serving as a digital wallet for the storage and management of IOTA cryptocurrency. IOTA, built upon a unique distributed ledger technology known as the Tangle, is specifically designed to facilitate secure, feeless, and scalable transactions between devices within the Internet of Things, IoT, landscape. RSI, as a cutting-edge platform that integrates artificial intelligence with arbitration and investment systems, recognizes the paramount significance of emerging technologies such as IOTA in the rapidly evolving digital realm. With its intelligent arbitration engine and expertise in financial services, RSI is strategically positioned to navigate the intricacies of IOTA transactions and provide invaluable insights to its users. CCG, an integral part of the RSI framework, is deeply committed to ensuring regulatory compliance and transparency within complex supply chains. From CCG's perspective, an IOTA account assumes a pivotal role in tracking and verifying the movement of goods and services throughout global supply chains. By harnessing the decentralized nature of IOTA's distributed ledger, CCG enhances traceability, mitigates fraudulent activities, and fosters ethical practices across the supply chain landscape. AFINet, another essential facet of the RSI ecosystem, is dedicated to offering secure and efficient financial services. From the standpoint of AFINet, an IOTA account facilitates seamless integration into the realm of digital currencies, enabling frictionless transactions with diverse stakeholders. AFINet astutely recognizes the potential of IOTA as a catalyst for secure and cost-effective financial operations, thereby fostering financial inclusivity and driving innovation within the financial services domain. When examining an IOTA account through the collective prism of RSI, CCG, and AFINet, it is crucial to underscore the harmonious and synergistic relationship amongst these entities. The integration of IOTA into the RSI platform, fortified by the compliance expertise of CCG and the comprehensive financial services provided by AFINet, engenders a holistic ecosystem that empowers users to harness the benefits of IOTA efficiently and navigate the ever-evolving digital landscape with unwavering confidence. In summary, from an authoritative and academic standpoint, an IOTA account assumes a central and indispensable role within the RSI, CCG, and AFINet framework. It serves as a secure digital wallet for IOTA cryptocurrency, enabling seamless transactions, promoting compliance within supply chains, and facilitating efficient financial operations. The integration of IOTA within the RSI ecosystem exemplifies the platform's unwavering commitment to innovation, efficiency, and the adoption of emerging technologies within the realms of arbitration.
All right, family. Now that I got your attention, now that I have your attention, um, let me expound on something right quick. A lot of individuals really don't understand some of the nuances that have come along with fintech. Syntactical trust, you guys already know what it is. You know how we're implementing it with our banking in the box platform. So I'm going to elaborate on what we have in the new age system. Literally right now, a lot of individuals don't understand the ability to leverage IOTA accounts in what you just heard. Now, to protect the innocent, I'm going to speak to you guys as if you're already compliance officers so you can follow the chain of command, if you will. First off, we got to really define what an IOTA account is, so for you to really get the gist of the direction of what we are talking about. So I'm going to just do some Googling here so you can kind of see it in real time. So you'll kind of get it from that perspective first off, and then we'll kind of elaborate in that regard. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to type in IOTA account. Let's see. IOTA account. Now, a lot of individuals don't understand what an IOTA account is. So I am going to talk about it from a perspective of applicability. We're going to say that a IOTA account could be classified as a means of an interest or dividends bearing trust account benefiting some sort of legal practitioner. For all intents purposes, the legal practitioner that we're talking about in this regard is going to be considered a civil law notary, a notarius in that regard, a notary. I can go into the aspect of lawyers, but I don't want to get into the violation of the Privacy Act. So we will talk about it from a notarial law perspective. A practitioner under notarial law in certain jurisdictions can establish what you will refer to as an IOTA account, if you will. And that account is actually a interest bearing trust account of sorts, or an interest on lawyers trust account, or an interest or dividends bearing trust account benefiting members of the bar. There's a lot of definitions that fall into it. I'm gonna give you an IOTA, an acronym IOTA and IOLTA. I want you to get into your head that when you see these type of accounts held by legal practitioners, these are trust accounts, is what I'm trying to get you to see. And when it has that level of implementation, there are rules under Regulation J and Regulation Z. There are bearer instruments and there are demand instruments that can be used when associating transactions to these type of accounts. What I will say that usually gets a lot of people's attention is understanding that you literally can look at the fact that if said practitioner is stating that in a real estate transaction of sorts, usually when this comes up, well, we need to have funds placed into escrow, that escrow account is going to be slated in probably one of these two IOTA accounts, which is a trust account, which gives the practitioner the ability to ask the owner of said account, quote unquote, if they are the owner or agent, especially if they are of a legal perspective, to produce the last 90 days CTR so that you can make a deposit into said account. If they're not able to produce that particular level of documentation, then you should be able to provide and substitute instructions on how they are able to convey value from the court register investment systems through, i.e., a court order or summary judgment of sort. I mean, there's a lot of ways to go into it, but I'm demonstrating the fact that utilizing a syntactical trust, utilizing Eris AI, CCG, and AlphaNet, you're able to actually leverage these types of accounts. So the question now goes forth. If you are a notary in your prospective states, check with your local institutions, such as the local banks, to see if you are allowed to open these type of accounts in the name of a said business and or trust. I hope this information has been impactful. I hope this information has opened your eyes. We have a lot of time, a lot of things to do and a little bit of time to get it done. I appreciate everybody's level of participation. Those of you that will be watching or viewing this and want to get more involved in becoming a compliance officer, in that regard, and you're interested in enrolling into the Syntax Trust Mastery course, you can reach us at area code 561-873-2125. Just leave a message. Someone from our illustrious staff will reach out to you to get you further enrolled into this type of training. With that, I'm going to say peace and love, family. Peace and love.